As someone who went from 99 pounds to now 155 pounds, trust me when I say I understand the fear, all the emotional roller coasters that go into gaining weight, accepting gaining weight. I had the opposite problem of most women where instead of trying to lose weight, I needed to gain weight and then I ended up gaining too much weight, at least to my liking, and I needed to lose it. So I'm gonna go through that entire story and then share a whole bunch of tips and talk about all the challenges and all my experiences that I hope make you feel better about your weight gain journey. Let's take it back a few years ago. When I had just started in college, I was considered like an okay weight. Like I wasn't considered overweight, but I would say I was pretty average weight. Of course, I had the whole freshman 15 just because I had just moved out of my parents' home and I was just excited to do all the things that I never really got to do living at home, and that was going out to bars just to experience what that life was like. Did not enjoy it, by the way. I was able to finally go out to all these like different restaurants, try all these different foods. I didn't have the best diet in school either, just because it doesn't make sense to me that when it comes to needing food, a cup of fruit is like $6, but if you wanted some chips, it's like $1.50. So naturally, I would always go for the more cheaper source. Of course, I had the ability to just go to the grocery store and get whatever groceries I wanted. That was still part of the excitement of being on my own. I could finally get ice cream. No one could tell me like you're gonna get diabetic. Like the talk I used to get from my aunt, I was 16. I was able to have like my own section in the fridge, so I didn't have to worry about anyone like eating it. But all the food I bought, I knew that I could eat. I would say I gained about like 15-20 pounds. My last year of college, I through something that was pretty big for me, and I ended up being in this huge depression rut. So I lost 30 pounds just due to not eating. I do not recommend that for anybody to do. It was purely just from depression. I had no appetite. I was just on high functioning anxiety. Not a good place to be mentally. It definitely wasn't a fun experience. I did not even notice the weight gain or the weight loss, to be honest. Didn't really have body image issues until a lot later. But basically, I went from being a normal, healthy weight to now 99 pounds. As someone who was like 24 years old, this was not to say I was at my healthiest. I was at my worst. I was constantly tired, had no appetite, had so much anxiety. I was seeing a therapist and everything for this. When it came to food, it was just the last thing on my mind. Fast forward now to kind of COVID. Many of you, I was stuck at home, did a lot of cardio and home type of workouts. I had weights that I had just bought. I even had like a pair of dumbbells that I could use. And at some point, I think I did gain at least 5 to 10 pounds, but I think this weight was just the weight I was always supposed to be, assuming I was eating enough food. Fast forward a little bit, when COVID restrictions had finally uplifted, my partner introduced me to the gym. Of course, I was nervous. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never lifted a machine before in my life. I was terrified, didn't know what I was doing, but he kind of showed me the ropes. A year into doing that, I had then gained, now I think I was at 120 pounds. And then the next year that I was still lifting, it was now another 10 pounds and so on. So now I'm basically at the point where I have gained 55 pounds from when I was almost 100 pounds. So as someone who has gained 55 pounds, it didn't happen overnight. So it's not like I was just body image rut. No, it kind of just happened more where I saw my body changing and it was no longer the slim, little, tiny, petite woman. I'm not gonna lie, I do sometimes miss being in that body type just because it was a lot easier to shop for clothes. It was a lot easier to be in pictures. I was that skinny. I didn't feel like I was looking for any flaws. I just knew I was small. But now being this bigger body, still all muscle. But when you're relaxed like this, it doesn't look like muscle. It looks like fat almost. That was the only thing that was really messing up in my mind. And it really didn't help that when I would go see the doctor, they would all tell me that I need to lose weight. And when they would tell me I need to lose weight, they say I need to go back to 130 pounds. I was like, absolutely not. That is losing not just weight, but that's also losing all the muscle that I had spent these years building. I felt like no doctor was really understanding that until recently. My last doctor visit was the most incredible experience. That's where I found an amazing OBGYN and a doctor who was like, who just looked at my chart and was like, so why are you here? And I'm like, my annual physical, like why else? It's like, do you have any problems? She asked if I just needed to get a refill on my inhaler because I have to do an annual physical before they can always do refills every year. I was like, yeah, that's kind of all I really need. She's like, do you have any problems? And I was like, no. And then she was like, okay, then I guess we're done. It was like a 10-minute visit. You're not gonna mention my weight? And she was like, well, I did ask you earlier, you know, what hobbies you like to do, how active you are. I mentioned weightlifting and walking and sometimes running. And I was like, and she was just like, yeah, your weight gain isn't an issue, hun. And I was like, What? I had never had a doctor finally tell me, yeah, that's fine, like you're good, like your labs are fine, you're good. And I was like, thank you. Before that doctor visit, trust me, I would sometimes kind of come out with tears because I would feel frustrated that I wasn't being heard by all these doctors, even though they were telling me, yeah, we know all about muscle building, but in reality, they just didn't. So now I'm at this point where I feel like I am fully confident in my body. Bad body image days just really aren't as frequent as they used to be, which was last year. So here are all my tips and my strategies that have helped me overcome that fear. The first thing I want to say is that you are a growing woman, or a man if you're watching this. And just know that the weight that you were in high school, that's not gonna cut it anymore. That's no longer you, and that should no longer be the goal. You are a woman who is growing, and biologically, our bodies are basically developing and forming to have a baby, whether you do or not. That's just how the biology is. It doesn't necessarily mean that all weight gain is considered bad. The next thing is just understanding that muscle and fat weigh exactly the same, okay? Meaning, if you were to lose 5 pounds of fat and gain 4 pounds of muscle, there's no difference on the scale. So let's say you are somebody who is 200 pounds, you just started your weightlifting journey. There's a good chance that you may not lose any scale weight at all, and that's okay. That is what's known as body recomposition. While it could still be misleading, it goes into my next tip, just focusing on strength goals. While I know it is so easy to step on the scale and just think, I have gained 20 pounds, there's nothing I can do about it. But if you are getting stronger at the gym, if your clothes are fitting better, if you are feeling more confident in the type of clothes you wear, if you're feeling more energy, if you have the excitement to get up out of bed, all real indicators of health and fitness. And I think there's this weird stigma that unless you're at a certain weight, you are not considered fit. But in my definition, you are considered fit and healthy if you are able to perform all your daily activities without being out of breath or without feeling like you need a nap in the midday. Now that running has become a trend, well, not just a trend, but it is a activity that more people are partaking in. You could be 250 pounds, but if you can run 6 miles without stopping, or just even 1 mile without stopping, I'm sorry, you're considered fit to me, because that's really impressive. There are people who are considered at a healthy BMI who could not even do that and that need to stop and take a rest. The scale does not determine your health. You could be 150 pounds, but your labs could be flawless. You could be 200 pounds, but you could probably be the healthiest you had ever been because you are able to walk 4 miles a day, you can run 2 miles without stopping, you're able to lift weights, you're able to squat and deadlift your body weight. Like, to me, those are all indicators of strength and health and fitness. Just because the scale doesn't say that, it does not get to dictate what that is for you. My next tip is setting non-scale goals. Now, what could this look like? These are just any goals that are not related to your weight. They are related to a number, but they do not define, say anything about your health and wellness. Maybe it could be running a 5K. It could be getting your first pull-up. It could be doing your first push-up. When you start focusing on the goals about what your body can do, how much your body can lift, you start caring less about how much your body weighs. Because the biggest thing is that the scale does not define your worth, and just because the scale fluctuates does not mean that your worth does. The next thing is just finding supportive communities. Now, when I say communities, I mean people who have the same interests as you. So if you're somebody who loves to lift weights, maybe don't join a Pilates group because they're gonna have different goals than trying to build muscle. Now, the type of clients and the type of content I make is to attract what's called the muscle mommies. I want to help women build so much insane muscle that they look scary to men. I want them to look like they could take your man. That is the type of goals that I set, and that's the type of goals I enjoy striving for. It's gonna look a lot different than someone who wants to be a Pilates princess, and there is no hate to that. But if you surround yourself with other women who have that same goal as you, there's gonna be a lot less criticism, there's gonna be a lot more uplifting comments. Even if it's just online, like a Facebook group, the level of connectedness you feel when you can just upload a progress picture or you upload some random small win, you will be surprised how many women are just cheering for you, complete strangers. And sometimes strangers end up being a lot more supportive than your friends and family. The next thing, this kind of just depends on where your relationship with food, your overall mental health. If you are somebody who has always struggled with like emotional eating, binge eating, or you look to food for anxiety and stress, this is something that would be a lot more important to work on than worrying about your weight. Women are pushed on to all this diet culture. You remember back in the 90s when it came to losing weight, women were told eat less, but when it came to men, they were told, oh, you need to eat more. A growing man needs to eat. We had a whole different level of encouragement when it came to food. For a lot of us women, we also had the body image that unless you were stick skinny, like rib cage showing and everything, that was considered the beauty standard versus a normal body was considered fat. So when you are exposed to all of that, it's really easy then to grow up with those same concepts in your head that you're not considered fit unless you look that type of skinny. One of the things that helped me, especially because I know getting therapy is not the cheapest option if you don't have good insurance or if you don't have any insurance at all, the best thing you can do is just finding things that reduce your stress. This could look like reading a book. This could look like doing yoga at home. It could be making a spa day for yourself at home where you have the humidifier on. You can have like those cheap little masks that you get at Target. They're like $1.50. There are so many tiny things to basically give yourself time and space from all the influence. My next tip is really reevaluate your social media. We are on our phones at least 90% of our time. We always have it with us. It's always on us. As soon as we unlock our phone, the first thing we start going on is social media apps, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Where you see the first thing is going to affect how you proceed your day, especially when you wake up first thing in the morning. The last thing you want to see is this beautiful, gorgeous influencer with this amazing body talking about, I just woke up at 5 this morning and I just had my little smoothie, my greens, and you're sitting in your bed and it's like 11 a.m. and you still haven't gotten up yet. You don't want that type of influence because then you start rewiring your brain thinking that if you're not doing exactly that, what you see on your phone, you're not making any progress. I actually had a client who really struggled with this where she was just addicted to her phone, just like many of us are. It took us a while to pinpoint where her bad body images were coming from. So one day I just asked, what exactly do you do in your day? Like step by step, break it down. We hopped on a call and she told me as soon as she wakes up, she scrolls on her phone a little bit. She proceeded to tell me about the day, and that's when I realized, we all scroll on our phone in the morning, but what is the first thing you see when you open your phone, like right now? It's literally just influencers, like whether it's at the gym or they're doing a clothing try-on haul. It's all just this influence. If it's not specifically that, even if it's just like a regular content creator, just having images of seeing them walk around in their house, it starts making you think that if I don't look like that when I'm relaxed in my own home, I must not be fit as her. And it's still feeding into your mind that this is how it should be, but this is how it doesn't look. And that's the type of influence we need to declutter from our phone. I used to follow a lot of influencers that were like that, and I didn't realize that that was what was damaging my own mind. I fell trapped to all of those influencers who were selling like their 30-day booty band guide. I used to purchase them and do them at home because they promised results within the 30 days. And it was the expectation that I was going to look like them, and then I didn't, and then I would just be frustrated as to why I don't. And it took me a long time to realize that in order to build those type of bodies, you have to spend time first building your body. Then you can jump into the lean side of it. But this can take years, which goes into my next tip, trusting the process. When it comes to building muscle, I think a lot of people think that they need to go into a bulk. Yes, but it's also very case dependent. If you are somebody who has never really trained too hard at the gym, you're just starting out, never really trained to failure before, you will be fine building muscle and just being in maintenance. Maintenance is where you're neither gaining or losing weight. This is a great place to be because you still have a lot of freedom in the foods you can eat. You'll be able to push yourself in the gym pretty hard, still build muscle. And if after that point where you just completely plateau, which is really difficult to pinpoint if gym is really the problem, then you could go into a bulk. Now the next problem is that if you were to go to TDEE to calculate your calories and find what your bulk should be, it automatically just gives you 500 over your maintenance, and so people then just eat immediately 500 over their maintenance. Ends up happening is that you gain a lot of excess fat, which is something out of your control. But what you can do is just go over 100 or 200 over maintenance. The goal is to not really gain as much, but you just want to build a muscle. Remember, when you're building muscle, that will increase the scale weight, and there's nothing you can really do about that. Which goes back into my other tips about focusing on strength goals. Even if you would decide to cut down and go into a calorie deficit, there is a good possibility the scale weight still won't change. Trust the process. Trust in your efforts. Focus on just building strength. Measure your progress by just taking photos. If you see yourself building more back definition, or if dresses are fitting more flattering on you, then you know you're on the right track. Why do you need the scale to tell you that or not? One thing people don't get is that there are so many tools you can use on your journey, with the scale being one of them. Scale is a tool. Just like there are many other tools you could be using, it does not have to be the only one. Your other tools could just be a measuring tape. We can measure around your neck, your bicep, your waist. That is a tool you can use. You can also just use progress photos. You're using your phone is also another tool that you can use. You can use a scale to maybe track data points, maybe if you want to look for patterns, but at the same time, you should just throw out the scale, especially if your goal is to get lean, build muscle, and all that good stuff. So that's mainly my tips for this. Remember that your worth is not determined by a number from a scale. You gotta shift the focus to just being your strongest, your healthiest, and your best self. The body you envision might even weigh more than what you do now, and that's just something that's okay. The most important thing to remember is that there is nothing that defines your worth. There absolutely should be nothing. The only thing that can is your mind and yourself. So I hope that was super helpful. If you have any questions or want to share your thoughts, feel free to share it in the comments. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.